Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to take a look at another Chinese homage watch. But what makes this one interesting is that it's a small sporty 39mm with sapphire crystal, miyota movement, and if you're a subscriber, you've actually seen it before as I did an unboxing about 2 months ago. Now I'm talking about the Cadisen Conquest Homage, which granted this review is a little overdue, but I've gotten to know it fairly well, and I can say that it definitely has some surprises. Some good, and some not so good. Now, as I said, Cadisen is a Chinese brand whose bread and butter seems to be in homage watches, with the specific one being an homage to the Longines Conquest. Now, the Conquest is actually a series of watches by Longines, which includes some quartz as well as automatic watches. The Conquest is listed as a sport watch, designed to be an elegant, everyday watch. So it's trying to hit that sweet spot where it's not too casual and not too dressy. Now, as far as I know, this is the only version that Cadisen makes. No other dial colors or options. Which I think is a little strange, and there might be a story behind that, but I'm not sure. Regardless, the Cadisen Conquest Homage is a rather bold, elegant-looking watch. So let's start to look at it in more detail. The case is a highly polished stainless steel, and it's a little smaller than what you'd expect, at 39mm without the crown. Now with the crown, it's about 44mm wide, and lug-to-lug is about 46.5. It's impressively thin at 11mm and uses 20mm straps. There is a fixed black bezel on the top, which I believe is ceramic, which gives it a very bold and beautiful two-tone look. And I would say the finishing of the case is fairly good. Now below we have the dial, which is a very reflective black coloring, with silver and white accents. The hour indicators are applied sticks, except for the 12 and the 6 o'clock positions, which have slightly oversized Arabic numerals. Each has a silver outline with white loom coloring. Interestingly, the sticks are raised much higher than the 12 and the 6, giving the dial a little bit of depth. Now beyond that, you have a raised chapter ring with minute indicators painted on. And at the 3, you have a date window, which has a white framing around it. The date is a little small, but it's usable. But more importantly, it's quickset. The hands are silver sword shaped, and I really like the length of them. The minute and second hands extend out to almost the outer edge of the hour indicators, while the hour hand extends just to the inner edge of those same indicators. Although one possible negative of the hands is that in lower light, they tend to just blend into the background. A better choice would have been something that adds a bit of contrast, such as white loom, but more about that later. Otherwise, the dial is fairly clean, with a small Cadisen logo at the top, and the phrase automatic at the bottom. Now, interestingly, all the stock photos of this watch also show the word sapphire on the dial just above automatic. Yet, all of the real-world videos and photos I've seen, including mine, omit that, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Now, as I mentioned in my unboxing video, there is no loom on the hands, which really is a pity. Now, a dress watch can get away without having loom, but for me, an everyday watch needs to have loom on its hands. But what's even more confusing is they did include loom on the dial, and while it's not the brightest loom, it does have a very nice effect. So the entire watch is just screaming for loom on its hands. And
I find the whole thing frustrating and confusing, probably more than I should, because I just don't get it. And I could probably go on for a while about how dumb I think it is, but I'll just leave it there. Now, let me be clear, I'm not just saying I don't like it because it doesn't have loomed hands. Plenty of watches don't have loomed hands. It's that they gave it a loomed dial and didn't give it loomed hands.
Now, moving to the right, we have the extended crown and crown guards, which are a characteristic of the Conquest. Now, the crown does look like it should screw down, but it doesn't. And at first I thought the shape was a little odd, but it has grown on me, and I did find the crown shape to be very easy to use with that small notch on the end. And topping everything off, you have a sapphire crystal. And I have to say that the combination of sapphire, shiny black dial, and a shiny black ceramic bezel make this watch a fingerprint magnet. So if you've already noticed some fingerprints, I apologize. But that combination makes doing this a little more challenging. Now, moving to the back, you have a stainless steel exhibition case back, with the typical markings, which indicate model, sapphire, and a sparse 5 atmospheres water resistance, which is equivalent to 50 meters, so not a whole lot of water resistance. On the plus side, the crystal on the caseback is very nice and large, although if you do run your fingers along it, you can feel it protrude out a little bit. Although most of the time I actually wore it, it was on a NATO, so for me this wasn't a problem. Now, one other thing about the rear crystal. I don't know for certain, but I don't think it's sapphire. On a whim, I attempted the water drop test, which, if you're not familiar, a drop of water should bead together on sapphire. The front passed as you'd expect, but not so much on the rear, which is a little disappointing, but I guess not that surprising for the price. Now, as long as we are still staring at the back, let's talk about the movement. As I said, it comes with a Miyota 8215 movement, which is a standard Japanese workhorse by Citizen. It is a standard beat rate, 40-hour power reserve, hand winding, but no hacking. And as for accuracy, so when it comes to accuracy, I had some fairly decent expectations for it, especially considering that it does have a Japanese movement. And it surprised me in a pleasant way, as it only gained about +4 seconds a day over the last 2 months, which for a watch that cost under $100 is amazing. So I don't know if Cadisen actually has someone who really knows how to regulate watches at the end of their assembly line, or if I just got lucky. But either way, I'm happy with the result. The only downside I have with the movement is that the rotor is a little on the noisy side. But from my own experiences, that's typical of a lot of miyotas. Now, as for the leather band it came with, it's okay. It's black leather that's a little thin, but it does have a signed buckle. It's basically what you'd expect for an inexpensive watch. Nothing great, but it does the job. Although I didn't really wear it too much on that leather strap, as I swapped it to a few NATOs. Partially because it's what I prefer, and partially because it's summer in Texas, and that leather don't breathe much. Now, as for how the watch wore, I liked it, more than I thought I would. But for the watch itself, style-wise, I think it's just a touch too small. I would prefer a 40 or a 41, but 39 isn't too bad and may be preferable by some. But what I do love is the thickness, or rather thinness, of this watch. At 11mm, it's great and very unobtrusive. which combined with that smaller 39mm width, also makes it a perfect everyday watch that you can wear with anything, almost anywhere. So let's talk price real quick. The price of this watch fluctuates a lot. I believe when they first came out, they were around $50, and now they seem to be closer to $60, and sometimes you'll find them up to $80. So I'll have a link below to both GearBest and AliExpress. So if this is a watch you're interested in, make sure you check both links and look around a bit. And I think it's a good buy if you can find it for $60 or less, because the movement itself is usually $30 to $40 on eBay. Now, as for the watch, overall, I think it's a decent watch, but it could have been a great watch if they'd included loomed hands. While the design may be borrowed, it is a beautiful design. It's also close to the perfect shape and size for an everyday watch for most people. It's not too big and not too small. Not to mention, it has the reliability that should come with a Japanese movement.
Now, maybe it's just me, but I find the lack of loom on the hands to kind of ruin it a bit. Because if it had it, I would think it'd actually make a very interesting alternative to a Seiko SNK for about the same price, and especially for someone who wants a slightly larger watch. Now for me, I'm going to hold on to it for a little while for two reasons. The first, because I have a general rule that says if a watch is exceptionally accurate, I hold on to it. And two, since it is a miyota movement, parts and hands are easily available. So there might be a mod project in the future with it. But let me know what you think about the Cadisen Conquest, as well as if you have any ideas on what type of hands I should put in it to make it a better watch. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and until next time.